Okay, so today we're starting day 3 of week 3. We're starting component 1. We learned DOM 1, DOM 2. You learned a lot about DOM, how to manipulate the DOM, how to add things to it, how to change all that stuff. Now we're going to learn how to use that knowledge to create something that, to create a component, basically, to create a section of code that you could repeat and you could use later. So in our introduction, it says, as we build a larger and more feature-rich web pages, we may notice a trend in our code. Elements that are essentially using the same functionality, styling with the minor differences in the data they present. In the effort to keep our code readable and reusable, and most of all dry, we can build on these repeating patterns and create components. Components are reusable pieces of code that can be used to build elements, sharing functionality and style. Okay, so the main thing about this section is that we're gonna take what we learned about adding something to the DOM, and we're gonna create a code that we can use again and again to kind of like build a section of the website. Let's say you have a form, and not even a form. Let's say you have a section where you add articles. So the articles, you could separate the articles, the content of the articles, and the actual HTML and the CSS. You could separate those two, and you could put the content in JavaScript in object. And then let's say you want to create multiple articles. Instead of copying the articles and pasting it in the HTML, you're going to put it in JavaScript. And then after that, you're going to use one function to create new article every time, but with different content. So that's kind of like what components is. Component is reusable code. So at the end of this lecture, you should be able to describe what component is and identify different parts of component, write a function that utilizes create element and return a new DOM element, iterate over a list of data, creating a new component for each item, and attaching that component to the DOM. So that's what we'll be covering today. So as I said, at the end of the day, we're gonna go to another JavaScript framework in the next section, where we will learn components. So components is very important when it comes to JavaScript. So when I say component, basically what I mean by component is, let's say you're creating a button and you want to use that button in different places in your website. Instead of copying the HTML code, just like this, as you can see here, we have a button here that is repeating. So we have this a button that has a button 1, button 2, button 3, and it's repeating all over the place. And you're using this in all over your website. Instead of doing that, you can use JavaScript to create one button, but just change the content. So you're gonna replace the content, and then the elements of the HTML can be put into JavaScript, and then you can use one function to create a button for you. And every time the button creates let's say a button element, it's gonna ask you what is the content or what is the title of the button, and then you're just gonna give it the title. So that's gonna be basically what we're focusing on today. And as you can see here, this is a repeating button, has the same class. So this class, and you're just gonna have this in your page, everywhere on your page. And that's not good. I mean, that's not good. That's kind of repeating yourself, basically. I already have something that says less, but don't worry about that. We're not gonna learn that today. Maybe another time. The main thing we're gonna focus today is this element. Create element, and you guys have seen create element when we were doing the DOM. It basically creates a new element. It creates a new HTML element. So if you want to create a button, you're going to say let button equal to document.create element button, and then now it's going to create a new button. Then after that, you're going to give it a content, And then after that, you could add a class if you want, and then you could create the click event. So when somebody clicks, then what happens? So we can actually test this out. So let's copy this code. Let's go here. This is our today's place. So let's just go somewhere else. Let's save it first. Is it safe? No, that's not safe. How do you save it? Saves automatically. Format on save. I can't save it. Okay. Let's go open somewhere else. No. Codeben. Okay. Now, if we try that out, let's see. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna, this is a JavaScript. So we're gonna put it right there. But at the same time, it's not gonna show here because we don't have a parent element. So we need to create a parent element called button here. So we're gonna create a button here and give it a button, okay? So now if it refreshes, it should have that button. So let's see, parent element button, okay? We have that and it's connecting. We're adding another button within this button. Okay, let's see. So we're trying to do something similar to this. Oh, we have to create a div and give a class of button, I think. All right, append it to button. All right, let's create that. Create this div. Let's give the class button here. So we're appending to append child is button. So where's the parent? So basically this, we can create another, let's actually just create a div here class, and let's select it. Let's parent element document dot query selector, and then we're just gonna say dot button. Now we're just gonna do that. Gonna connect it like that. Okay. So as you can see, we appended, we basically connected. All we did was we created a button. This is creating a button. And now this section is creating a button. This section is the event. So this button has a content of button 1. If we change that, we could change something. Click me, and that's going to change it to click me. As you can see, we added a class called button, and that's all we did. So now if we actually go to, if we inspect this, let's inspect it. Norm inspection. As you can see, we have a div called has a class button. We also have a button here. It has a class button. It has a click me as a content. So that's how you create an element in JavaScript. It's basically, you have to append it. You have to connect it to a parent element. If you don't connect to the parent element, you could connect it to the body. You could just say here body, and it still is going to be the same. So we could just say body here, and it's still going to show there. But now we created our own parent element. If we click it and we go to here and we click it, it's going to show us a message that said clicked. As you can see, clicked. So, so that's how you create a element. Okay. So in this lecture, basically, we're creating elements right and left. So from here on, you should understand how to create an element. You should be comfortable with it. Basically, all you have to do is just say give a variable and then say document that create element, and then give the name of the element. So let's say we want to create another element. Let's say we want to create something like, let's create a paragraph. Let's create a text. So we're gonna say let main text, something like that. You can name whatever you want, and then say document that create element, And then here we're gonna just say something like P. So we're creating, and when you say P, it understands that's a paragraph basically. Now all we have to do is just put the content. So we're gonna say main text dot we're gonna say text element. Sorry, this is kind of low. We're gonna say text element, not text element, text content.
Text content.
Yep. We're just gonna say this is a new paragraph. Okay. Now it's not gonna show. Why is it not showing? What do you guys think?
You have to connect it to the parent.
We have to connect it to the parent element. So the parent element is right here. We're gonna create another. So we're just gonna connect it just like we connected to the button. We're gonna say parent element, and you can name this whatever you want. Parent element dot append child and append. The difference is that append child is the DOM way of connecting something to something else at the end of something. But if you say append only, it's the JavaScript way of doing it. So append is a JavaScript, append child is the DOM way. That's the only difference, but they do exactly the same thing. And here we're just gonna connect to main text, okay? And you should see that here, right there. So that's how you connect something new. First, you create the element, and then you give it a content or something, either text or image or whatever. And then after that, you create the parent element. You don't create the parent element, you select it. If you don't have a parent element, select the body here. So just select the body, and automatically it will connect. That's if you're using CodeBin. CodeBin already has the body set up for you. So HTML and body, all that stuff already set up. If you're using a VS Code editor, then you have to create the HTML body yourself. So you have to understand this part for the whole lecture to make sense for you, because the whole lecture is about creating something new from scratch. So someone said, what is the JavaScript way and what is the DOM way? So here we learned append, right? So you guys learned append here. When you say append, JavaScript has a method called append. Append means connect at the end of whatever. So, and you could just look for, you could say JavaScript append method. Okay. So JavaScript has its own append thing right here. So so it says append method inserts set of node objects to DOM. There's actual append, not append method. Let's just say append here. So append. So summary. Okay, this I don't understand this one. Where is the WEB03 schools? So there's child append. There's something called HTML DOM append. So this one belongs to the DOM, and just append itself belongs to JavaScript. But they do the same job. They do the same job. So you could either say append or append child. So that's the main thing you need to understand when it comes to today's lecture is creating an element, adding content to it, and then attaching it to the main parent. If you understand that part, today's lecture will make a lot of sense for you. Okay. So this was just a precursor. You go ahead.
How do you call the text content without even writing it? This is a new paragraph. Like,
how did I connect to this?
No, how do you call it? Like, instead of writing it, this is a new paragraph. Like, let's say if there's a paragraph already, and
there is a paragraph already. Okay, so let's say that we have a paragraph here. Let's say there's like an object here. Let's say let our content, something like that. So, and we'll cover this today a lot because we're going to be using a object. So let's say we have here we have like content. We have a content, and then here we have like this is the new paragraph. Okay, we have it like that. So now if you want to call this, you're just going to say here, instead of that, you're just going to say our content dot content, I think, right? Yeah, content dot content. So that's how you call it. If it's a nested in a different way, you just look through the nested and then call it that way. Always you have to look for the name. If it's something like content, main, or something like that, this has to be quoted like that. It has to be in quotes. And then in here, you have to call it like this. You cannot use a dot notation. You have to call it like that. Content, main, or something like that. Okay. So that's the difference. Yeah. So we will learn this a lot today, how to call something from an object. That's the main lecture. Any questions about how all this works?
Mahalan, for the second example, where you did the parent, the main text.
Yeah.
For the first one, I see you have a div button, but for the second one, where do you get that from, the parent?
So the first one, you said I have a div?
Yeah, up there at the HTML, you have a button,
the div.
right?
Okay, this div, right?
Yeah, that's the parent, right?
This is the parent, yes.
Okay, that's the first example. The second example where it says main text.
Yeah.
You connected to the div or?
Yeah, I connected to the div, the same place. So right here, I connected to the div, you see. So this is the div that we grabbed, or you could just say here, dot button if you want. This is the main parent, and I connected both the button and the paragraph, both of them to that. So this is a little confusing because this says button, but if we just say div here, let's say container instead of button, we could say here container, and that will work fine. And it's going to show here. So this is the main container. And basically what we just did in HTML, basically what we created right now in HTML is this. We just said button, we give a class of button, and then we said click me, and button. That's the first thing we did. And you can see we have two buttons because we have the one for the JavaScript and the other one. And we could just get rid of that one like that. Okay. So, and the second thing we did was we just said P, and then we put here, this is a new paragraph. P. That's what we did the second one. So all this JavaScript we did is these two lines, basically. So keep in mind, that's how you create a new element, and that's how you append it to it. You either say append or append the child, and then you grab the one that you want to connect to. So this one is here. So it's the parent, it's the higher level, and then the paragraph is the lower level. So if you want to connect those two, first you select the parent. So this is the parent, the higher level, and then you take the variable, and then you say append, and then the lower level. You grab the lower level, the what do you call the variable of the lower level, and then you connect it like that. So this is the precursor. This is kind of like understanding what we learned previously. Okay. So today's lecture. Yes, go ahead.
So that append and append child. So the append child is for the DOM, so right? And then the append is
append child is the DOM way of connecting something, and just append itself is JavaScript.
And then they do the same.
They do the same thing. You could use either one of them. It's fine. Okay. Any questions so far about this? We will go quick and build things in the DOM and add things to it in the lecture. Okay. Let me know if you have any question. Just you can write it or send me in private or whatever way. Okay. So today we have this web page. Okay. This website. Just quick something I built quickly. So it has a couple of things here. So forget about this. Okay. Yeah, this is just a note I wrote down. So this is just a normal HTML. We have a couple of menus here. These are the menus, navigations. We have a section, this section. So this text, all this stuff is this section. And then we have a lower level. We have another section, but there's nothing in it. So this section, what we want to do is we have the section, and then we have another div has a class of accordion. We want to create we want to create boxes here with just JavaScript. So those boxes will have content, and they should have they should be toggleable. Basically, they should be, when we click a button, they should be we should be able to toggle them. So let me just show you the HTML version of this. And we're not going to be able to do the content. We're just going to be able to do the, I'm just going to show you how it's going to look like. So run. So this is how it's going to look like. And here it says open, but we're not gonna use that open name. We're just gonna use a button that shows a arrow up or arrow down. And when you click it, it's gonna expand and it's gonna show you a content. So it's gonna show you the content after you expand it. And we're gonna have multiple ones, but we're gonna create all that in JavaScript. Instead of having this, and let's say if you wanna have the content, you have to copy the content, put it right here. If you want to create another one, you have to copy all this and not all that, but all this right from starting from here, and basically paste it again, and then change the content, paste it again, change the content. Instead of doing all that work, we're going to do that. We're going to create one function, and the job of that function is to create multiple boxes like this with the content, and has a functionality of like expanding it and everything like that. So that's what we're going to do today. That's our job today. Okay. All right. Let's actually, this is not, okay. Let me actually open, that's not a, let me just close this. I'm going to copy the HTML. Let me open my, here. Okay. I think this is the one. Okay. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. But we're going to get rid of this now. And okay. All right. So that's the main thing we're going to do today. Let me close this. Don't need it. Okay. So that's what we're going to do today. That's the main section we're going to cover. So let me just open my, okay. Yeah, sure. I can share the code bin. Let me just make sure this is the correct code bin. Yep. So now we have only the HTML. We have the CSS here. Everything looks good. Let me share that. You can follow along with the code bin, and you can see the changes I'm making as we go along. All right, so let's get started. It's getting hot in here. Okay. All right. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to grab the content that we're going to be using. So we're just going to paste the content in here. And this is going to be an object. So as you can see, it's an object with the content. So this is, it's called banner data, and it has a title, it has the content, and each section is going to have its title and it's going to have its content. So we're going to use this, but first we have to build the whole thing from scratch. So we're going to build a whole function from scratch. So now, so this is the steps we're going to follow. So the first thing is we're going to remove the HTML, which we did. Remove, you're going to create, so if you want to do something from like scratch, first build the HTML and then remove it and build it in JavaScript. So remove the HTML. Okay, section you want to create with JavaScript. Okay, and another thing is we'll create a function to build a reusable component. Okay. And then we're gonna we will give the component, we'll give the function, we'll give the component if functionality. We'll give the component functionality to allow us to toggle a button. Okay. So that's kind of like the general concept we're going to use. So let's get started. First, I'm going to copy I'm going to get the HTML we're going to use, because it's good to see the HTML before you get started. Now you know what to create. So the first thing we will create is this div, and then we'll create this div. We're going to create this h3, and then we're going to create another div, and then 2 buttons here. And then after that, we're going to create this div with the content of panel, and that's it. So and the content of the panel, it's going to come from here. This is the content. So that's the main job today. Okay, so let's create the function here. So we're going to start with the function. And this function, we're going to put all the functionalities to create the panel, or the box we saw. We're going to call it create panel. Okay. This function is going to take 2 things. It's going to take title and content. So the reason why it's taking the title and content is because we already have it here. So we have a title and we have a content, and it's going to take those 2 arguments. Okay. So we're going to have a lot of code within this function, and it's okay to break it down, to break down the function to different things. So you could have one function for the button, one function for functionality, one function for all that. But we're learning today components. So components means we're going to combine everything into one function. And then that function is going to build what we need for the website. So the first thing we will build is we're going to select the elements. Okay. Going to create the elements. Create the elements. Okay. So let's get started. So we're going to create the first one. So we're going to create this one, the div. So we're going to say, you could use constant or any other let or var, but constant is good. Constant, let's call it panel equal to document dot create element, and then we're going to call it div. Okay. So that's the first one. The second one we're going to create is this. So we're going to call it panel bar. It's another div. So let's go down. This is freezing. I'm going to say constant panel bar equal to document dot create element. And then we're going to call it, I think this is a div, right? It's a div. Okay. Another div. So, and then we can create another one, constant. So we're going to go back to the HTML. We're going to create this h3. So we're going to say, this is going to be panel title, document dot create element. And then we're just going to say h3. And I'm just going to copy this section instead of writing it again all the time. So what is the second, what is the next thing we're going to create? Can somebody tell me? We're just going to go through in order. What do you guys think? So we created this, we created that, we created this. We're going to create this, right? The panel buttons. Yeah. So yes, so we're going to call it, something like button panel equal to, and then I'm going to say here, I think it's a button, right?
I think it's a div.
Is it a button? It's a div. Okay. It's another div. Okay. What is the next thing then? So we have these 2 things left. Okay. So constant, we're going to call this one button open, the first one, because it is the one that opens the box. So button open is equal to document. We already have that. Just paste. And this one is going to be what?
Button.
Button, yes. So button. And then we're going to create the one for closing. Button close. And then This one's going to be a button too. All right. The last thing we're going to create is this section. Okay. So that's the last thing. And why are we creating this section, and why is it not connected to this? What is the relationship between this section and this section? This section and this section. So this section is the top thing is the parent, right? Sorry about that. This is the parent.
This is a child.
Yep, these two are siblings. They call them siblings. So the reason why it's siblings is because this is the parent, and this is one child, and this is another child, right? So keep that in mind. Constant, we're gonna call it panel content. So this is gonna be the content. And then this is gonna be a div, right? It's right here, it's a div. Okay, so now we created everything we needed to, all we need now is the append. We're gonna do the appending, and also we have to give it class. We have to give them a class and all that. And the content is gonna come later, because in this function, remember when we learned functions, you do not want to hard code things in function. You do not want to have the content within this function. The reason for that is because we're gonna create multiple panels or multiple boxes from this function. And if we have a content in here, it's going to add that content each time we create something. So you want to have the content outside and then import it or bring it in when you need it. Okay.
Duran, can you repeat that again?
So in this function, we don't have the content. So the content is right here, right? We have it as an object or a array within objects. Objects in an array. The reason why we have the content outside of the function is because the function, we're going to use it again multiple times to create something, to create a box. So every time, if you have the content inside here, then it's going to bring that content each time instead of new content. So we're going to have multiple boxes with the same content. And also it's good practice to not add something that is hard-coded inside a function. So hard-coded, that means things like numbers or a text, that human readable text, not a code. So human readable text like paragraph, things like that. It's not good to add anything that's human readable within a function. You want the function to have an input and output. So when you add something in the function, you don't want the function to give you something different. You want it to give you what you asked for it. So, and when we were learning, I give example of like the ATM machine, or like the ATM machine, let's say. So the ATM machine, you put your card and then you get your own money. So you get your money from your bank. Let's say the ATM machine is the function and you put some money here. Money, okay? And that money it doesn't belong to anyone. It's in the ATM machine. And when the person puts their card, they get more money than they asked for, right? So they get their money and then they get another money. And somebody else comes and then they get another money and then their money. So a function is just like that. It's like ATM machine. You do not want the function to have something that is extra. You don't want it to have something that you already put in there. You want it to have something that is coded, and you want it to give you a result instead of something that's already created, right? So that's why we're not putting the content inside the function. We're just asking it to create the HTML for us, right? Okay. Okay. So the next thing we're going to create is we're going to do the appending. We're going to append the first one, which is the panel, which is this one, to our HTML. So our HTML, we have this, right? This is the accordion. So we want to append everything in here. We're going to put everything in here. So we're going to use the accordion. So let's just copy that. CSS. Let's go down here. So the first thing we need to do is, before we do that, actually, we're not going to append to this one first. We're going to append this one from outside of the function. So we're gonna append the function to this, right? So every time we want to create something, we want the function to connect to this. So this is gonna be outside of the function. So let's connect all these together. These the ones we have. Let's connect them all together. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna append almost everything to where. So in here, where are we gonna append everything to? Or connect everything to?
To the panel.
The panel, yep. So we connect everything to the panel, okay? So on the panel is this. We have the variable right there. We're gonna say panel dot append child, or you can say append if you want. And then now, what are we gonna append what's the first thing we're gonna append this to?
Panel bar.
Panel bar, yep. So then right next to it. So we're gonna say panel bar is here. So we're just gonna say panel bar, okay? So that's the first step. The second thing is we're gonna append the content, because you wanna go as like the siblings. So first we're gonna append this sibling, and then we're gonna append this sibling, right? So we don't want to go deep into here before we actually append this one, because this one is higher than these, okay? So let's do that.
Can you say that again?
So remember we talked about the sibling, like this is the parent, and it has two siblings, this one and this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first step you want to take is you want to append all the siblings instead of grandchildren. These are grandchildren to this section, to this parent. You don't want to append the grandchildren before a sibling, right? So think of it as like a family. So this is the main parent, this is a child, and this is a child, and this child has more children. You don't want to give priority to these children before you actually take care of the main children, right? So that's what we're going to do. Panel.append child. And then we're going to append this. So panel content is what we're going to connect to. Panel content, okay? So we appended those two. And we're not going to see anything until we return this function. So don't expect anything to show up until we return it, and then we call it outside. So this is a normal function. We have to call it. We have to actually invoke it. So keep that in mind. Okay. So the next thing we're gonna connect is we're gonna start from here. So we're gonna start from here. So what is the next thing we're gonna append? So starting from here. Title, right?
Title.
Yep. So the title, we're gonna append the title. To what? What are we appending the title to? This title.
Panel bar.
Panel bar.
Yep, panel bar. So panel bar is right here. We're gonna say panel bar. Okay, and then we're gonna say dot append child, and then we're gonna grab the panel title. Okay, so this is gonna keep going. So I think I misspelled this not correctly. Panel bar. Okay. So this is just gonna keep going. I'm not gonna ask you guys again. Let me just finish the appending, and you can see now you guys understand the general concept of it. I'm just gonna mention how I'm connecting it so we can save time. So the next thing we're gonna append is we're gonna append this section. So let's do that. And we're gonna connect it to the panel bar. Append child. And this is going to be the first thing we're going to append is the banner button. So this section, this one. And also we're going to append these two. So these two buttons. So these two buttons we're going to append to this. So that will be this button panel. So button panel dot append child. And then we're gonna, this is the first one, the open one. And then we're gonna do a button panel dot append child. And also this is gonna be the closed one, okay? So when it comes to appending within the function, that's it. So we appended everything. We connected everything together. So everything is connected to everything now. All we need to do is now we need to add the classes. So we have a class here, we have a class here, and we have another class here, we have another class. So all these classes, we have to add them in JavaScript, right? We have this class, okay? So now this was the appending everything together, okay? So that's append everything together. The next thing is all the classes, okay? So we're just gonna start from the top. So who remembers what we used to add a class? So we're gonna add a class to the first one, which is panel.
Class list.
Class list, yes. So we're gonna say panel dot class. How do we add it? Class list, right?
Class list, then dot add.
Dot add, right? And now we're gonna add the exact class, which is panel. So we're just gonna say panel, right? The next thing is the this section. So panel bar is the next thing. We're gonna grab panel bar dot class list. I think I misspelled this. Class list, and it has to be written like that. We're gonna add a panel bar, right? So on the next thing is, and let me know if you guys confused about any of these things I'm writing. We can kind of like we can look at it and see what part you don't understand. So just let me know if something is confusing. Let me know. And also, all these are not like you wouldn't understand all of it 100%, but just understand we're just creating the HTML just using JavaScript in the long-winded way. The reason why we're going this way and we're grinding and going through all this is because later you're gonna appreciate when we get to like React. When we get to React, we don't have to do none of this. React is gonna do all this appending, all this stuff automatically for us, and we don't have to do any HTML. We're just gonna use JavaScript to write what we wanna write, and then it's just gonna generate the HTML for us. So, but now we have to go through this so you guys can appreciate later. Okay, button panel, then class list dot add. We're gonna add panel button, like this. So we're gonna add right here, panel button. The next thing is the button open. Button open dot class list dot add. And this we're gonna add this CSS. I mean this class. Okay. And the second to the last one is button close dot class list dot add. This is going to be the opposite of that one. Okay, and we're going to examine this in the inspect element section, and we're going to see how all this stuff comes together. The last thing is panel content dot class list add, and that's going to have this.
Duran,
yes.
what about the other class, the hiding?
Oh, the hide, we added it. We added this whole thing. It's right here. Okay. So I'm gonna explain why we have the hide button. I'm gonna explain all that when we do in the inspect element. So when we build everything, we're gonna do inspect element, and I'm gonna show you what these classes do and how they hide different things and how they do all that.
Okay.
So now we finished all the class adding. So I'm gonna add one more thing. So the buttons, they're gonna have, I'm not sure if I still have it. The buttons, they're gonna have a toggle thing. They're gonna have an arrow that shows when it's open and when it's not. So if it's open, it's gonna point down. If it's not open, it's gonna point up. So to do that, we need to create that. So to create that, we're going to use a what do we call a HTML entity. So let's say we're going to create something like we're going to say open. So this is going to be for these two buttons, the button open, button closed. So you're going to say open, and then we're going to use an HTML entity. So this is going to be, I'm just going to copy it, but I can show you guys where you can find these. So this is an HTML entity. So if you put that code there, that means that is an arrow that's pointing down. So let's actually look for this in the internet. So there was a website where you could just look at it, all of them. So this is yep, it's right there. So this is a HTML Unicode character. And it's basically, instead of using third-party, what do you call a library where you have like buttons that show up and down, go up and down, you could use this small code anywhere in the browser and it shows up. And also if you want to use it as a CSS, this is the CSS, and we're using right now the JavaScript version of that, which is where is it? Where's JavaScript? I think it's this one, right? Yeah. So it's a Unicode. It's basically some, the browser and the people who work on HTML and JavaScript came together and they created these. When I say Unicode, I mean everything that you see in the browser. This is a different topic, but everything you see in the browser or in the computer doesn't understand what this is. It doesn't understand black down pointing. So there's something called Unicode, which is converting like a computer characters to an actual words that you could understand. So let's say the B has a Unicode. So, and this is a completely different topic. It's related to like how computers work and how they actually show text and all that stuff. So we'll not go there, but just understand that this is a arrow pointing down. We're just gonna say close, and we're gonna grab the code for that one. And this is gonna be an arrow pointing up. That's the only two different. Okay. So I'm also gonna set a content for the buttons. So the buttons we're gonna be using, and also I'm gonna connect to the content. So all these, some of them they have a content. So the buttons, these buttons, they have open here, right? This button has open, this one has a close. And then the title, which is this one, has title of panel. And instead of title of panel, it's going to be this title or any other title, okay? And also the content. So the content is going to have this content, or it's going to be any of these contents, right? So we're going to set that, okay, in here. So this is going to be an add-in content. Okay, so to add a content, we're just going to use text content. So we're going to grab the button open and say dot text content. Content is equal to, we're going to say open, which is this right here. We're just setting this to this. And then button close dot text content is equal to close. So, and this is going to be this variable. We could just grab this and replace this with that. So it doesn't matter, but I'm just showing you how you could make things easier for you. And you could use this later in different places if you want to use that. That's the button. Let's set the content. So to set the content, we're going to say panel content. Remember, we created that right here, panel content. Remember, this is also this section, right? This is supposed to be this, right, for each one of them, okay? So, and now we're going to say text content. What do you think we're going to set this to? What do you guys think?
Content.
Content. Okay, where did you get that from? So we're going to set it to content. You're right. Right here, right?
At the top.
Yep. So it's in the parameter, because we're gonna pass this, right? We're gonna pass this from here. So the parameter, we're gonna set to the parameter, and the title, we're gonna set the parameter title. And later when we call in this function, we're just gonna pass the title and the content, and this whole function is gonna work. So we're gonna say here content, right? And the next thing is the title, panel title dot text content is equal to title. Do you guys understand that? Let me know if you don't understand what this is doing. Okay. So actually for the content, that's pretty much it. So now we could actually run the whole thing and connect it, and we're gonna come back for the functionality, and we're gonna do that after a break. So functionality is gonna be here, or we're gonna call it, we're gonna say component functionality. We'll do later, coming up. Okay, but now the last thing, what's the last thing we need to do? How do you take things out of the content, out of a function?
You're gonna invoke the function?
We're gonna invoke it, but before we invoke it, we have to return, right? So the question is, what do we return? Because we have all this stuff.
The title and the content?
We're gonna return the panel. The reason why we're returning the panel is because everything is connected to the panel, and this is the panel. So if we return this part, it's gonna return all this stuff, right, for us. So we're gonna return panel here. Okay, so now we only have the functionality of like clicking the button left. Other than that, it should work. So now to make it work and to make so we can see something before we take a break, we have to create the parent element that we're going to connect to, and we have to like select it. So this is the parent element. We're going to connect everything to. So we're going to say constant. Let's say we're going to call it accordion. How do you spell accordion? Okay, accordion. I'm going to say document dot query selector, and then we're going to give it a accordion class, which is this class. All right. So now for us to append it, it's gonna be hard, because if we just write exactly like append just here, the reason for that is because we're appending a lot of things, not only one thing. So the function is gonna give us all the content above, and we have to append it. So we have to loop over the content. So we have to loop over this content. We cannot just grab each one of them. If we grab this one, we have to grab each one of them, and it's going to be a lot of work. So for us, for the job to be easier, we're gonna say panel data dot map. Remember, guys, you learned the map, and we're gonna say here function. We're gonna pass something here. Let's say item, right? Why is this refreshing? I didn't even ask it to refresh. Okay, it's probably saving or something. So we're gonna say item. This is the callback function. You guys remember what map does? Who can tell me what map does? What is it equal to in JavaScript, normal JavaScript?
For loop, and it loops through, and then it returns a new data.
New data. Yep. So map is just like for loop. So we can use any like normal for loop. Instead of writing for loop, we could use the map for now. So now let's actually console log a couple of things. Console log. Let's console log. Let's say something like creating panel, and then let's pass here. Let's say item dot title. Okay. So now if we go to console and refresh it, why? Okay, I think I didn't make it the behavior run. Okay, let's just do that. Save. Okay, so I just have to say run. So as you can see here, it already ran. It gave us the titles of this content. So first panel, second panel, third panel, right there. Okay, so it's working. The next thing we need to do is we need to append this accordion to the function. So what the function gives us. So we're going to say accordion dot append child, and then we're going to append that the function. So we have to invoke the function in there. So the function name right here. And then we have to pass two things the function. Remember, it's asking us for title and content. If you don't pass something there, it's going to give us an error. That's how functions work, basically. If you don't pass anything, it will give you error. So we have to pass a title and content. So we're going to say item.title, and we're going to say item.content. And where are we getting the item.content? It's right here, right? So this is the content and the title. Now, everything should be good now. So it should work. So let's save it and let's run it. We should have a whole box created for us here. Run. Okay, so it's not working. Let's go back. Why is it not working? We did the query selector, we did the panel map function. Let's remove this. Item title and item content. We return the panel. Okay. So let's see. Are we missing something? So everything should be good. Create a query selector, class accordion, save, run. Okay, it's not creating. So let's see, let's test a couple of things. Let's test first. Let's console log this, accordion. Did we even spell it correctly? I don't think we spelled this. Yeah, it's the spelling. So it's accordion like that. Okay, save it, run. We should have the boxes created for us. It didn't do that. I think I misspelled somewhere. So let me just copy this, accordion, 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 okay. All right, let's see. We're missing something here. Okay, let's see how we connected everything together. We maybe misspelled some create element or something like that. Append child, okay. Append child is good. Append child, append child. Panel bar. Sometimes you could have, let's see. I wish it selected everything that is like panel bar. But what I can do is I can just go here, search it, and it shows like that. So panel bar, everything is spelled correctly. Okay. So now we're gonna inspect the function itself. So let's actually console log the function. So let's pass it two things. So we're gonna invoke it here, console log function itself, and then we're gonna pass a title. This is a title and content. We're gonna know if the function is working from here. This is a content. Okay, so now if we save it and open the console and run, we should have, so as you can see, there is an issue there. So we have issue failed to add a DOM token on line 65. So we have issue here, class. Okay, did you create the class list correctly? Okay, classes is good. The add looks good. Maybe we didn't spell something here correctly. So it's saying here invalid character error. Maybe it's this where we have an issue. Clear, run. Okay. So this one's saying the token provided panel contains an HTML space character, which is not valid until, okay. So let me go back to my node and see if that's the case. Oh, okay. I think we have to put a code here. And then I think Abdurshid pointed out this. I think that's where the issues come from. So if we have two classes and we're using class list.add, we have to put a space. We have to put a comma between them. I think that's where the issues come from. So if we run now, it should be good. Right? So it's giving us the whole thing. Okay, let's go back and it should create everything we needed for us. So let's close this. Okay. So as you can see, it created this for us. Now, if we click this, it's not gonna show because we didn't create the functionality. But these are all this came from the content, the object here. So if we change one, if we say this, let's say test title, you should change the first one. If we run, right? So test title. So that's all connected. We can look at the inspect. So if we save this and go here, change view to, let's say full page, and we inspect it, it should have all this, all the HTML. So if we select any of this, as you can see here, we have the panel. So this is what we created. We created all these panels, different panels, and inside the panel, it has a panel bar with the class panel bar. It has a title. It has a button here, and also here's the content. We have the content. It's not showing now. If we change the button, let's say this button panel. If we change this, if we change the CSS, I think to something like hide. I think this is not right. Okay, we'll learn. We'll learn how we can hide the button. I think it's this one. If we add like here, hide BTN or something like that. Yeah, so it's not gonna show, but actually we just have to remove this one maybe. It's not gonna show that. We have to add the actual functionality, but it's gonna toggle when we add the functionality. But the content is there, everything is there, and this one has its own content right here. So we created everything. We just need to basically, let's just go back here. We just need to add the functionality to toggle this, change it back and forth so we can see the content. Any questions so far of what we did?
Can you go down to where we created the accordion?
Yeah, right here.
Mine is different somehow.
So make sure the spelling is correct. And it's a query selector, not query selector all. You have the CSS class here. I'll just copy right here the CSS and just paste it there.
It's saying to me that accordion has already been declared at, and then it gives me this long.
Okay, make sure you didn't declare accordion before.
Okay.
Make sure within this page you didn't write accordion anywhere, and make sure, yeah, that's the only reason why I would say that.
Okay.
Double check if you mentioned it somewhere else. Yeah.
How do you know if the accordion will be the parent you're gonna append to?
So we already appended. So the accordion is already appended to the parent within the HTML. So the HTML is already built like this, right? So okay. The accordion is connected to the section, right? And the section is connected to the outer section, right? So we're using this accordion that's already built. We're not creating a new accordion, right? It's already in the HTML. We're not creating it. We're only selecting here.
Yeah, I know, but how do you figure out that's the one to select? Like, what differentiates from the container and secondary, and just who you pick it out?
The difference is what do you wanna when you wanna add the content. So what we created, which is this whole section we created, we want to add it within the accordion. So this whole thing should be inside the accordion, inside here, inside there. So the way we know it is because we're just going to look the first one that's up above it, and that is the parent. And we don't care what's above this one because it's already built in the HTML. We don't have to do it in JavaScript. And also, if you guys want to follow along the this code bin, I shared it in the Slack group. Okay. Any other questions? And you can send it. You can send me a private message if you don't want to talk and things like that. Go ahead.
Well, I said like too many pages now.
I know. So all this is just to create this section only, and then we already have the content. So, and we're using this map to create multiple ones. So the map is calling the function, which is this, and it's creating multiple ones for the content. So we add in all the content, and that's what the map is doing for us. So if we add a new one here, if we add a new content here, so we're just gonna copy this. It's gonna create a new box for us. So if we just create one here, we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna say 5th panel, and we save it. Now we have 4 panels here. We're gonna run. It's gonna show the 5th one.
That's what reusable code means.
Yes.
It's components you can create. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. This is the reusable component that we talked about. And remember that this data that we're using, this is hard coded, but eventually this is gonna come from database. So eventually you guys gonna work with the databases, or I will help you. I'll create the database for you, and then I'll just give you a place to grab this information. And you don't even know the information, how many articles you're gonna grab. So I'm gonna say, let's say maybe you have 20 articles, and you don't even know if it's 20 articles. All you know is how it's set up. So I'm gonna say, okay, the data has a title and has a content, and it's called panel, and it's nested like that. When I give you the link, you could actually look at the data and say, okay, I see how it's structured. It has this, it has that. Maybe it has like a date here. So in the homework, you guys gonna have here a date like that. So it's gonna show a date here, whatever, 2000 something like that. It's gonna have a date here. So that's gonna be the homework, but it's gonna be exactly the same as what we're doing right now. Instead of passing 2 things, you're gonna pass like 3 things in the function in the homework. Keep that in mind. So title, content, and you're gonna pass a date. So yeah, so in the future, this is not gonna be in here. It's gonna be in database, and then you're just gonna grab, and somebody else is gonna add some article. So let's say someone just created an article without understanding where the article is gonna show. You don't want that person to send you the article, and then you create a new HTML, copy the old HTML, and paste that article there. You don't want that. You want the website to create a new panel or new section for the article automatically by just invoking one function. So that is, that's where the reusable code came from, is by creating this function, and it creates like multiple things for you. So that's that. The next thing we will do is create a functionality. So we're gonna have a toggle on, toggle off. It switches back and forth. So that will be the next thing, inshallah. We're gonna take a break. See you guys soon. We're gonna take 10-minute break. If you have more questions, write it down. Let me know, and I will cover it when I come back, inshallah. Okay. See you soon. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, guys, let's get back to it. All right. Any questions you guys thought about? Okay. So we're gonna add the functionality. So the functionality is gonna be an. Can you guys hear me? I think you could hear me. It's gonna be a.
Yep.
Okay, good. So the functionality is gonna be a event add event listener that we learned. So all we're doing is we add event listener to this button, and we want it to toggle. So we want it to go up, show point up when we click it, and then after you click again, point down, and when it points up, I think it opens. When it points down, it closes. So that's kind of like what we're trying to do. So here we will add an event listener to the close open button. We will also use toggle. We'll also use class list dot toggle. So this is something new you guys haven't seen before. So we learned that class list has an add. So we've been using this for a while. So class list has add. It has another property called toggle. So if you actually Google this, it has the toggle. So let's actually just Google toggle. So if you go to W3 schools, it has a property called toggle. It's right here. So this property toggle, it basically allows you to add a CSS and then remove it by just clicking. If you click it one time, so the toggle itself is like an if statement. So it says, if you click this button, add the CSS. And then if you click it again and it doesn't have the CSS, if it has the CSS, remove the CSS. And if you click it again, if it doesn't have the CSS, add the CSS. So it's just back and forth, adding, removing. It's basically an if statement within the toggle. So we're going to use that toggle to change between the close and the open button. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So let's add that. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to add the toggle to the the panel button, which is this one. We're going to add it to this. Okay, so that's where we're going to append, and we're going to say, okay, when we select this, when we click this one, remove the hide button CSS, remove from it. And when we click this one, add the hide button to it. Okay, that's what we're trying to say here in what we're trying to create right now. So where is it? So we begin with it. Okay, so we're gonna say button panel dot add event listener. Okay, and we're gonna add a click method. We're gonna create an callback function. We're gonna give it the parameter event. Open that. Now, what we can do is we can, let me console log the event itself. So we're gonna say console log, we're gonna say button clicked, and here we're gonna call the event itself. So when we say event, we have to use a property called target. So the event itself has a property called target, which means exactly what we're clicking. So the target means it's the target, it's basically what we're trying to click. If we open the console log now, the console, and we say run, we're gonna go down. It's not showing. Okay, we're gonna go down, and when we click it, it's gonna show this message: button clicked. So it shows button clicked, and then it showed us exactly what we clicked, right? If we go down this one, exactly the same thing. It's going to show us exactly what we clicked. So when I say target, I mean exactly the HTML element that we're targeting, okay? So that's what target is. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a toggle to two buttons, the two buttons we have. So the open and the close button, we're going to add the class list.toggle in here. So so right here, we're going to say the first step is to toggle hide button on both buttons, okay? So that's the first step. So we're going to say button open dot class list dot toggle, and then we're going to add the hide btn class, okay? And we're going to do the same thing for the close. We're going to say button close dot class list dot toggle, and we're going to say hide btn, okay? So now we have both added. We added the class, so they should both be hidden if we run that. So maybe if we save it and run, now actually when we click it, it's gonna be hidden. So when we click it, it's gonna show actually it's gonna show it's gonna toggle the up and down arrow basically. It's not gonna hide it, but it's gonna show up and down arrow, but it's not gonna show the content. So that's the next thing. So now everything is working. Basically, we can toggle it, as you can see. And that's how toggle works. Basically, it adds or removes CSS. If we actually inspect the actual CSS, let's save this and change the view to full view. And we inspect this element. We look at the CSS. So right now, the CSS, this button, the closed one, this is the closed. Yeah, the closed one has the hide button. So that means it's closed basically. So if we click this, look at here, the open one, it's gonna have a hide button CSS when we click it, the class right there. So we removed from this one, we added to this one. If we click it, we remove this one, we added this one. So that's what toggle does for us. You could you could remove a CSS, you can move a class from one element to another by just toggling back and forth like that. And over here, you could see the hide button has a display none. So whatever you add to it, whatever element we add, it's gonna hide. So now it's hiding the up arrow. So this arrow pointing up, it's hiding now. It's a display none. If we click it again, the arrow pointing down is a display none. Okay, so that's what we're adding. That's pretty much it for that one. Okay, let us go back. So we have that functionality now, but it's not showing the content. So when we toggle this, we don't see any content. So the next step is to add the content. So step two is change. Okay, we're gonna change the visibility of we're gonna change the visibility of the content by toggling toggle on class. So there is a toggle on class in our CSS. It's right here. So if we go down all the way to our CSS, you'll see a toggle on class. So this toggle on class allows us to add a class to the content, and then it's gonna show the content is gonna show. Okay. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna choose the panel content. We're gonna say class list that toggle, and here's where we're gonna add the toggle on. So we're gonna say toggle on. Remember, in class list, you don't say dot toggle on here. you just say toggle on. It's just like get element by ID. You don't add the hashtag or hash, hash bound. Okay, so toggle on. So now if we run and save it, we should have the content shown. So we run. So now if we click it, you see the content right there. Close it, the content goes away. And if we check, if we view this in our HTML, and we choose the whole panel. So this is the whole panel right here. That's the title. Choose the whole one. So this is the whole panel right there. And the content is right here. So this is the content panel. Now it's hidden. But if we open it, you will see there's going to be a new class that will be added here. See, we added a toggle on class, and that's how it shows. Toggle off, it goes away. Toggle on, it comes back. Toggle off, toggle on. And the rest are the same, like that. So that's what we created. We created our accordion, basically a way to toggle things off and on by creating a function and also appending things together, calling the content, and creating a functionality for the toggle on, toggle off using add event listener. So this is all the things we learned through the DOM 1, DOM 2, throughout JavaScript, using functions, parameters, return functions, all that stuff. It's been building up. So now you can build an actual thing. You could build actual components of JavaScript. So I mean, when things build up, this is what you get. You understand now what add event listener does. Add event listener. You understand what is class add. You understand how to create a element. You learned that before. Now it's a revision for you. So it's been building up. So now you have the whole thing together. The last thing left is component 2, which will be a closing lesson for what you learned. Any questions so far about this and even the whole thing? And I think you guys understand what the toggle on does. It's just, it changes back and forth. It's an if statement for you, basically. Okay. If there is no questions, we're gonna go over the assignment. We're gonna see what do you need to do, and then we will close it. Okay. So let's go to the assignment. Let me know if you have any question, or you remember something, or something that doesn't make sense to you. Let's go to the assignment here. So we go down all the way, component 1. Component 1, you guys are going to be building a newsfeed website. That's the job you guys are going to do. And also, I see some people already copied or forked. Make sure you do it again, because I actually updated a couple hours ago. I changed a couple of things to make it easier for you guys to understand. And I tested a couple of things that I did before. And I think I, kind of updated basically a few things. So the main thing you're going to do is you're going to build a newsfeed website. In this project, you're going to build a newsfeed reader. The goal is to have a collapsing menu. So you can have a collapsing menu. And when I say collapsing menu, I mean something like this. So if we actually make this one really small, this is a collapsing menu. That is collapsing menu. And as you can see, that's toggle on, toggle off. Actually, I think if we even inspect that, let's inspect that. Maybe they used, this is a GitHub. So they probably used something way more advanced. But if they did, we're going to see. We can open this to another window, and we could just select it, and we can see the functionality now. As you can see, when we open it and close it, this CSS is changing somehow. So it's adding, as you can see, it's adding this open detail on, as you can see. So this is not something, what I'm teaching you guys is not something that is theoretical or something that is not in real world. As you can see right here, GitHub is using it, exactly what I'm teaching you. So toggle on, toggle off. And I think if we even look at the JavaScript, it's going to have the same functionality or similar functionality as what we just did. So that is a toggle on, toggle off. So keep in mind that this is really important stuff that you're learning right now. So you're going to have a collapsing menu. That's what collapsing menu is. And expandable news articles. You can have articles that are going to be expandable. Maybe I can show you guys an example. Let me see. I don't want to show you the solution code. So I'm just going to do it in another screen. I'm just going to show you the, I'll show you how it looks. It's going to look like. So this is what I want you guys to have at the end of the assignment when you finish it. So let me open it. Week 3, I think it's day 3. So let me open that. The browser, where's it gonna open? Oh, it's frozen. I opened it 2 times. Okay, so this is what it's gonna look like. I don't have the menu right now, toggle on, toggle off, but this is how the article is gonna look like. So I didn't even finish the CSS. It was supposed to look better, but the main thing is the functionality. So this is gonna be article. So if you toggle on like that, toggle off, toggle on, and I created all this with JavaScript. So this whole section of this article is the HTML elements are created with JavaScript. So even if I show you the actual, let me show you the actual HTML. Actually, it's in our GitHub. So I can just show you in the GitHub right here. Let's go back to GitHub. Where is it? So right here is our HTML. It doesn't have anything. So you have, you basically have this starting point, and then your articles are gonna go, where are they gonna go? So you have a header here, and then you have article here. So this is where it's gonna go. So articles, this class is your parent. So remember, we did the accordion thing. So the accordion for you is the article right here. So everything will go right there in between the whole function. So this whole thing will go in there, and make sure this is how it expands. So that's the assignment for today. Let's read a little bit more the README. Create a DOM element with JavaScript function, element selection, basic DOM manipulation, event and event listener. Set up your project as usual. Part 1 is creating the article section. So follow the instructions in the article.js file and complete the functionalities. And then you could add your own article. So here it's optional. You could add your own article in the object. And here is the menu. So you can create a menu there's going to be a menu.js, and that's what you're going to do. So everything is in here, components. In components, you have the article and you have the menu.js. So read through the instruction, make sure you understand what this is saying. Basically, this is the data that you're going to be using. And then here's the instructions of what you need to do. Step 1, and this is how it's going to look like in HTML. So I already gave you the blueprint or to follow. So create that and follow these steps. Any questions?
All right, so the JavaScript file, the JS file, is the only file that we're supposed to edit.
Yes. So you will only need to touch the 2 JS files, the menu and the article. You don't need to touch the HTML. If you want to move things around or something like that, let's say the JavaScript is not working for you and you want to move it up where it's connected, then you could do that, but no adding any HTML elements in the HTML file. And so just follow this, create a function called menu maker, and then that's how you're gonna create that. So it's exactly what we did, just different content. You don't need to touch the CSS. Everything else is already set for you. Any questions?
Did we do the menu?
We didn't do menu in the today's lecture, but it's exactly the same concept. So you're doing the toggle on, toggle off thing. So same concept, you create a function called menu maker, you follow this blueprint of HTML, and you just follow these steps, all right? It's the same thing. Just this one, it's gonna have, the main point is the toggle on, toggle off, and also showing these on your, when you toggle, when it's a toggled on and you show in the menu, this is what's gonna show. Otherwise, it's gonna show these three dots, and you already have this. This is an image, so you're good to go. All right. Any more questions?
How do you fork that into the pin code? I mean code bin.
If you want to put this in code, if you want to put this in code bin, I don't think it's easier to do that because we have assets, we have images, we have this image.
No, just the HTML and the CSS, and then work with the JavaScript. So that. Yeah.
So what you could do is you could put this image on a website or somewhere, and then grab it that way. But the only other than that, everything else you could put it on CodeBin. The only thing is just the images. CodeBin doesn't accept images, so you have to host it somewhere else. And then, but the JavaScript and the HTML and CSS, you could just copy and paste in CodeBin.
Okay.
Hopefully this is not less. Yeah, I was using something called less when I was creating this. So you might see some CSS you don't understand. Yeah. But the main thing is just creating that. All right, guys, try your best. You have all tomorrow. And then after that, we will have, so tomorrow is Wednesday. And also I wanted to tell you guys something. I didn't tell anyone this news. My family only knows. I was contacted by Google for an interview. So way back at the beginning of 2020, I had an interview with Google for a job, and then COVID-19 happened and they just disappeared. And then they contacted me like a couple of weeks ago, and they said they're gonna give me an on-site interview. They're gonna go through and don't do the phone interview. So they can do the on-site interview, but the on-site now is virtual. It's going to be over the computer. So I'm just testing my ability. It's not something I'm expecting to get a job. So that's why I've been busy the last couple of days. I've been studying all that stuff. So it's kind of like I think you guys are the only people I shared with other than my family.
Congratulations. So. That's really good news.
Yeah. It's funny. There's one Somali guy in Google who actually I contacted through LinkedIn, and he referred me. He gave me a reference through Google, and the guy who hired that guy is the one who's actually helping me through the interview process. So next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'm gonna be studying, doing a data structure and algorithm, studying all that stuff. And then at the end of this month, I'm going to have the interview. It's going to be very intense. So so in case I'm not responding messages, things like that, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, but we're going to keep doing the lectures and all that. Don't worry about it. The school is not going to be interrupted. That's not going to happen. But yeah. Yeah. So I'll do referral for you guys when I get to Google. If I make a dua, inshallah, if I get there.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. We all want to work for the FANG companies.
Everybody wants to work for the FANG companies. But the funny thing is, actually, let me stop the recording because other people are going to watch this later on, other students. So let me just stop the recording. Where is it?